speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any television or background sounds so that we may hear you clearly. Please state your name and address at the beginning of your comment. Kristen, do we have any callers for public comment?
No callers.
Seeing none, we'll move on to item E, unfinished business. E1, 603 East William. This is a returning item from the November 12th HDC meeting. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give us an update on the application?
Sure. So at the November 12th meeting, a request for a blade sign on the corner of the building was postponed, and the applicant was asked to return with a smaller sign design. The new design has been reduced from 6 feet by 3 feet to 6 feet by 2 feet, and the location has been changed from the corner of the building over here to centered between this pair of windows over the bay on the west side of the building. I have, let's see, here's a better picture. You can see that the blue awning that I mentioned at last month's meeting had been staff approved, and it is now installed. The building slopes downhill a little bit, so it's not exactly aligned, but it looks better with the one on the other side. And yeah, you can see where they want to put the sign. There are several penetrations through bricks and mortar joints and stuff where there used to be signs or something mounted up here on the wall. Here's the view looking east and the view looking west. The reason for not putting the sign, proposing it on this side of the building, even when their door is on the right side of the building, when you see the two doors, it's because of this tree. It doesn't look bad now, but when it leaves out, you really can't see anything from the center of the building over to most of this right-hand bay. It's kind of hard to see there. That's the awning from last month, and that's the corner mount sign from last month that is in here if anybody wants to go back to it. And here's the new sign. Oops, oh, I'm sorry. Let's see, so it is 72 inches tall. The windows are 80 inches tall, and it is centered between them, and it is centered vertically between them. The plans do state that it will be mounted in mortar joints, and staff does think that this lower, thinner profile, 2 feet deep, works a lot better with the streetscape. It's still not a pedestrian type of sign, but for a second floor business, I do think that this is an appropriate design in the right location. And I'm not going to go through the Secretary of Interior standards and guidelines because we did all that last month, and none of it has changed. It's still the same standards and guidelines that apply. So that's really it for me. And I do recommend approval of the revised application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioners Beeson and Rockland, we're on the review committee. Do you have anything to add to the report?
I don't have much to add. I agree with the report. I think that it's a better location, and I think that narrowing the sign a foot does really change the proportions of the sign, kind of what you're looking at. And yeah, I don't, there's no other comments.
Yeah, so I guess I wasn't there for this one, but I was there on the previous review committee. So I guess a lot of the observations are similar. It's really about the positioning of the blade sign in the neighborhood as well as in that block. And we know that around the corner there's the Avita sign, which is similar in scale to this proposed one. You know, that being said, on this block alone, I can't remember. I don't think there's any ones that are a blade sign. Is that right, Jill? Nothing on this block. But, you know, by and large, this is still a much better improvement. It works better with both what our guidelines have and also what the store is needing. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Beeson and Rockland. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record?
Tom Lasky, 603 East William.
Thank you, Mr. Lasky. Do you have anything you'd like to add to the report?
Yes. One is I appreciate the comments that we've heard thus far. I also wanted to note that I believe the initial proposal had us coming out at a perpendicular kind of oblique angle from the corner. And one of the commissioners suggested it would be more appropriate to be perpendicular to the building. So we also made that adjustment as we moved it further away from the corner. And I'd also note that as we move into the next phase of removing conduit from the exterior, we'll be adjusting the awning so that the building that slopes, there won't be the gap on the awning at the left side that was earlier pointed out. We'll make that adjustment once the conduit's out of the way.
Thank you. So we have a couple other call-ins. Did any of the other applicants have anything to say?
Rob McPherson from our sign company is, I believe, on the line, available. I'm not sure there's anything technical for him to address, however.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, not seeing any, so I'd like to now open the public hearing for this item. This is the opportunity for any persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the application at 603 East William. Kristen, do we have any callers?
No callers.
All right. If there are still no questions from the commissioners, I will close the public hearing portion of the application. Would any commissioner like to make a motion? Commissioner Beeson?
Sure, let me grab it here. So it looks like we're doing the sign one. All right, that's an easy one. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the portion of the application at 603 East William Street, a contributing property in the East William Historic District, to install a second floor blade sign mounted through the mortar joints as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for storefronts and signs, and the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 1, 2, and 9, and the guidelines for storefronts and building sites.
Support.
All right, moved by Commissioner Beeson, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there discussion on the motion? Not seeing anything. I just comment that this, I think, meets what we had, sort of recommended and suggested, and I think it falls better within the guidelines that we have set forward. So I appreciate the review on this and continuing application. All those. So, are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice from staff. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning your project.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I ask one clarification question?
Sure. Yeah.
I understand that we're here only to speak about the sign today. I just wanted to get clarification. My understanding is the door, we were at the meeting on the 12th of November regarding the door, and then the issue of the transom and the molding came up. Have we been staff approved for based on the drawings that have been submitted by the architect to make those changes?
Yes,
Because-
Tom, I sent your, the revisions that were emailed out to the officers of the Historic District Commission and got sign off from them. So
Right.
that part is completely done of the
Okay,
application.
terrific.
After
just-
this meeting, I'll send out a certificate of appropriateness. I'll email one that will cover all of the work that was on the application. You'll just have to fill out a new application for the conduit and stuff, or just get rid of it, and then you don't have to do anything.
That's great news on the door, and the plan is we've already talked to the architect and the contractor, and when we replace the door and the transom and the molding, the plan is to remove the conduit, our conduit, move it inside. MRA requirements require us to have a light and a camera over the exterior. So we'll have another opportunity to address that. I understand. We'll make sure that it comports with your design goals for the historic district.
Sounds good.
But I appreciate everyone's participation tonight and the approval.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Lasky.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks again.
All right. I believe that is all of our unfinished business. We can move on to items to hearings. So F1, 502 North State. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
All right, 502 North State. It's a two-story gable fronter that features a front box bay window with an ornate detailing, a cut stone foundation, 1/1 windows, and a small ornate side porch on the south elevation. Staff estimates, based on these features, that it was built in the 1880s. It's actually a pretty interesting house because when we were out there on the site, we were sort of speculating that it has what looks like an addition on the back, but when you look closely, it may be that the addition was there first and it was sort of a standalone house. May have had a gable facing the way that we're looking right now, and this may have been built in front of it or moved onto the site from someplace else. Hard to say, but it's a very interesting house. It's at the northeast corner of North State Street in East Kingsley, and the applicant is seeking HDC approval after the fact for the enclosure over the stairs that you see here in the photo. It's on the north elevation of the house. And in reviewing this application, staff also noticed that this front door is new or was not previously granted a certificate of appropriateness. So staff is asking that this door be added on to the application as well. Let's see. Okay, so the recent history and what happened here, in June of 2019, a rental housing inspector was out and said, hey, this is all new work and you didn't pull any permits for it, and there's no HDC approval, and they ordered that the permits be obtained and finalized. It took until March to get a building permit application. I'm sorry, that was in June. And then in October, we got an HDC application finally. What was here previously, and there's a picture in the staff report, is one of those simple aluminum awnings that were very popular in the 1950s and maybe 60s on metal poles, little narrow metal poles to hold it up. And so it was open on three sides and just had that aluminum canopy over the stairs. A branch or a tree fell on it and crushed it, so it had to be removed, and the owner decided to go ahead and do the work without approvals. They are desirous of keeping rain, snow, and leaves and debris out of the stairwell. This is an entrance. I don't know if it's the primary entrance or secondary to an apartment that's down here in the basement. So let me run through the pictures here. Oh, sorry. This is what it looks like. You can see that there is a cut stone foundation behind it. And it has four oddly operable vinyl windows with screens. And they were open. It was just sort of odd with the whole front of the little structure being open. The cement work, the concrete was already poured, so that wasn't new. You can see that it has a staircase, an egress stair wrapping around it that was already pre-existing as well. And here you can see what it looks like from the front. It's unfortunate that the stairs come out so far. So in order to cover the stairs with a roof, it also has to come out that far. It's kind of flush with the bay window here. You can see that this porch is not original. I'm sure that there was some sort of a stoop there, but it wasn't this one. This railing and the stairs are also not original. You can see that the door may have either been taller or had a little transom window over it originally. We don't know. The door that was removed was not a historic door at all. It had just a single half light. You can see that this door, it appears to be wood or clad or something, I'm not really sure. It has 3 panels, but it does have sort of a leaded glass look up here. And it's never been finished off around the edge. I'm not sure what's happening there. This door's been there for a long time. All of this work was done a long time ago. Let's see, what do I say about the door? Yeah, I think that the door's been there since for like maybe 4 or 5 years. And I'm not sure if it was done at the same time as the enclosure or not. There's the door with its leaded glass, but it's the same size as the door that was removed. There are a few little details left that are very cool on the historic bits of the house that are left. And this is what we were speculating could have been a whole other building that was either here first because it is a rubble foundation, or maybe was tacked onto the back of this one, or vice versa. We don't really know. There are drawings of what was built. And there are some sections showing the stairs, etc. If the commission decides that the work is not appropriate, you would make the first motion, and if it fails, that's saying that the work is not appropriate. And then there's a second motion in the packet, which is basically ordering that the work be reversed within 60 days. That could be for just the stair enclosure or just the replacement door, or neither or both. It's like I started to say, it's a problematic stair because it just goes out too far. So there's no way you're going to hide a roof over it. A roof wouldn't be, if there were no roof over this stair, there's no way that one would be approved today, but it already had one, so they were just putting it back per se. This whole side of the house has been modified quite a lot until you get around to the back behind this bump out that seems to have been there originally, but maybe was made taller, and all of the windows are altered. The house is certainly still a contributing structure in the historic district. It's just unfortunate that this was put on the way it was without asking for approval first. So as always with cases like this, it's great that you now know exactly what it looks like. But if you think that the work is not appropriate, you have to say so and consider that, and not just say, well, it's already there, so we're going to let it go. You really got to consider whether or not it's appropriate that this enclosure be there, and whether it does more harm than good, and whether it meets the standards well enough to squeak by or not. Certainly, let me go through the standards and guidelines. I don't think I talked about those yet. From the Secretary of the Interior, number 1 says a property will be used as it was historically or given a new use that requires minimal change to its distinctive materials, features, spaces, and spatial relationships. Obviously, that's the one where we would not allow that front stairway to be located where it is today, if this were a new application. Number 2 says the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. Number 9 says new additions, exterior alterations, or new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property. Here we have the 3 of them again. The guidelines for missing features, designing and constructing a new entrance or porch when the historic entrance or porch is completely missing. This wouldn't be this wouldn't be a historic entrance, it would be a new entrance, but it needs to be a design that's compatible with the historic character of the building. It's not recommended to construct secondary service entrances that are incompatible in size and scale with the historic building. For additions, it's recommended to locate the attached addition at the rear or on an inconspicuous side of the historic building, and to design new additions in a manner that makes clear what's historic and what's new. Not recommended is attaching a new addition so that character defining features are obscured, damaged, or destroyed. You'll have to decide whether that that cut block foundation is now being obscured. And designing and constructing new additions that result in the diminution or loss of the historic character of the resource. From the Secretary of Interior's guidelines for building site, not recommended is introducing new construction that's visually incompatible in terms of size, scale, design, materials, color, and texture, which destroys historic relationships on the site. From the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for doors, it's appropriate to replace a missing or non-original door. This is for the front door, with a design that matches original doors remaining on the house, or with a compatible new design and material that fits the style and period of the house and the existing opening. Not appropriate is replacing a non-original door with a new door that is not compatible with the house style, or that has frosted or decorative glass that is not replicating an original door. That's the line that I was concerned about with this door. All right, so that concludes staff's report. And let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioner Beeson and Rockland were on the review committee. Would you please give us your report and recommendations?
Yeah, so we had to really start with this as if that wasn't there, that structure wasn't there, and try and think about if we were reviewing this application for something being proposed. And we tried to look at some of the adjacent buildings, looking at what kind of features they had. And, you know, by and large, the resources along the block were all very much intact. This one is unique among, for lots of different reasons, but this one is particularly unique because of the add-ons, and we tried to go through kind of the research that Jill already alluded to in terms of its timeline of how this thing was built and which order it was built. And, you know, another part of this is trying to identify some of the character defining features. So the stone, the cut stone is certainly a feature around the foundation, as well as some of that exposed painted brick, which is on some of those little bump outs. The dentals and some of the wood on some of these bump outs is also fairly character defining, but the rest of the building is fairly stripped down in terms of its character defining features. That being said, other aspects we tried to look at on site were mostly identifying, you know, how would this classify itself? Would this classify itself as kind of a secondary or service entrance, which we kind of felt like it did, as more of kind of a secondary entrance. And then trying to look at some of the guidelines and trying to see like, well, what does this do based on some of the guidelines? And we'll bring that up more in discussion, but that's basically what we saw by walking around it. Dave Rockland may have some more.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with what has been said so far. I think that if you look at, so it's a corner property, so you just kind of have to look at the properties, you know, directly to the left of the image that we're looking at. And there's two historic homes just to the left, and they both have very unique and just historically appropriate original porches. And so it's quite a contrast to this house, where the stoop and the stair leading to the stoop are obviously, you know, completely devoid of any historic character, let's just say. So that, and then also with the door being updated in the way it was, it really complicates the image that you're looking at, where you have this structure that we're talking about, and we're concerned about, you know, is it compatible? Is it taking away or removing or blocking historic features? And then it's right next to this, you know, the stoop and the door that are have already taken away from the character defining features. So it definitely kind of complicates things from an image standpoint, like what you're looking at. I think that this project probably, regarding the service entrance or the secondary entrance, I think that it's not necessarily so much about character defining features? Did it remove character defining features, or is it blocking character defining features? But I think the question is going to come down to, is it compatible? You know, was it put in a way that is compatible with what's there?
Thank you, Commissioners Beeson and Rockland. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Rob Fowler. I live at 5550 Fox Run in Saline.
Hello, Mr. Fowler. Do you have anything you'd like to add to the staff report?
Well, no, I did not do the work. I was asked to pull the permit and try to make this right with the city to rectify the situation. And you know, my understanding is, you know, there was a metal awning type roof that was damaged with from a tree, and then his maintenance staff rebuilt this entrance, you know, as we see it today.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? I don't see any questions. I'll move on to the public hearing portion for this item. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about this application at 502 North State Street. Public comment may be made by calling 213-338-8477 and then entering meeting ID 928-3060-7630. Kristen, do we have any
No callers.
callers in line?
Hey, Anna, can I jump in with a question for Rob?
Sure.
Okay. Hi, Rob. So we're talking about there's the entrance, but then I suppose the door is also a part of this application now. Shall we take the commission here? Should we take the door sort of as is, like as we're looking at it, or is there some plan for trim around it, or, you know, is the door as is, or was the door just half done and there's more that we should know about?
I didn't. I guess I'm looking for your suggestions, and I will push them on to the owner and try to make everybody happy. I guess that's what my role in this is, trying to be the go-between and try to you know, make it a win for everybody.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other commissioners have questions? We can close the public hearing portion of the application. Would any commissioner like to make a motion on this application?
Oh, do it.
Commissioner Fortin.
So if I understood you, Jill, we make the motion. And are we doing both at once? Sorry, I can't find the text.
It's suggested with both at once. If you'd like to talk about them separately, you can just leave one or the other out of the original motion. Whatever you think is easiest.
Okay. Well, should I make the motion and then we can decide?
Yeah, you can always take one or one out if you want. Yeah.
Okay. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 502 North State Street, a contributing property in the Old Fourth Ward Historic District, for the prior installation of an exterior basement stair enclosure and replacement of the front door. The completed work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, and material to the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings. In particular, standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for entrances and porches, additions, and building site, and the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for doors.
Support.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Fortner, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion?
It's a hard one to begin, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I can go.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess I would really try and force myself to kind of stare at the guidelines more than anything else. And I'm looking at entrances and porches, how it's recommended that it's on a secondary elevation, which this is not. This is right next to the main entrance and extends beyond the main entrance. So that right off the bat is like saying, okay, well, it doesn't meet the recommended guidelines. So how about then the not recommended? It says constructing a secondary entrance that are incompatible in size, scale, and relationship or detailing with the historic building. And while this nice little porch area has really good functional point to it, and it looks really nice in terms of its carpentry, and just details don't match. Its size, scale, and relationship don't match. And it's also in an area that to me does end up competing in its compatibility with the rest of the building, even though it's a fairly large building. And this is a small little thing off to the side, but it still has an impact on its overall historic resource. Then the last thing I'll say is really about the additions of the guidelines that really identify attaching a new addition so that it's the character defining features of the building are not obscured. And this one definitely obscures the cut stone. I don't know if that's a really good photo to show on the cut stone along that elevation. It was pretty prominent before all this stuff was put in, but now you got to kind of look and tuck yourself in to see it. Which I think would be different if the walls were opened along the sides and this was just a post and beam structure. But with the 4 windows and a solid wall, it tends to kind of obscure the view of those cut stones. Then what else? I think the door is a weird one too. This is certainly not a door that would match the character of that house. But also understandably, doors that do fit the character of that house when they're not protected fall apart pretty quickly. So even doors like this will fall apart fairly quickly when they're not protected. So I think both of these have an issue where, in my mind, they're both not meeting our current standards as under the precondition of reviewing the design, much less already built.
Thank you, Commissioner Beeson. Any other commissioner?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I guess I'm seeing the same things that you are, John, in the guidelines here. Although I guess just kind of how you started, like it's a nice looking thing that someone built. And so it's hard to get around to then see, well, I guess let me just start with the door. To me, the door is, I don't know, it seems pretty cut and dry that it's not appropriate. And I'll just read it again. You read it, I'll read it again. Replacing a non-original door, which is what we had, with a new door that is not compatible with the house style. So that's what we've done here. This is like a cottage style or an arts and crafts style door that's been put on a, I don't know if it's like a stripped down Victorian or, what is it? It's not an arts and crafts and it's not a craftsman house. Let's just say that. So, and then it also, so that's, can't do that. And then also it has frosted or decorative glass, and that is not replacing an original door, I'm guessing. So to me, the door is pretty obviously not appropriate unless we hear otherwise, some other information. And then I'm looking at the same thing you are with the, hold on. The, how come I can't? Okay. With the entrances and porches, not recommended constructing secondary or service entrances and porches, which is what this is, that are incompatible. So then, so we've got size, scale, and detailing. And I think that the size and the scale, I don't know if I can argue with size and scale because of that awning that was there, or that, the aluminum awning was there already. It's protecting the stair. So I think that it's more about detailing that's the issue here for me. And the detailing, again, it draws attention to itself unnecessarily. It's very nice, but it just is, to me, it's incompatible in the detailing. And there really isn't that much detailing here, but what's there is incompatible. I think the windows and the arch, and then there's like to me, a minor point is that also it cannot obscure or damage character defining features. And then I do see that, what John was getting at is that it is obscuring the cut stone. So I'm seeing all of that, but then I'm also seeing the metal stair behind it and the concrete stoop and all those things that that are taking me the other way, where it's yes, the detailing doesn't match, but it's maybe there's too much historic character already removed. So I'm swaying. I'm leaning towards not appropriate, but then my thoughts get muddled up when I keep looking back at this image, which was what I was saying earlier, was that like the image wise, it's just hard to kind of grasp what we're talking about. Any other comments, please?
Commissioner Quijano.
Thank you, Anna. I agree with the comments and critiques that have been made by Commissioners Beeson and Rockland. Again, kind of thinking about this, going about it as if it was being applied for, pre-construction, and would we have approved something like this? And I did have those same thoughts. And I'm also revisiting the standard number 9. I'll just quickly read through it. New additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. Like we've said, there probably isn't, I don't think that's original siding behind it. A lot of it has been stripped down. So the little that we do have, that being the stone, is obscured, maybe not destroyed, but obscured. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible in the massing, size, scale, architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. I'm reading that as, I know there are other guidelines that speak specifically to the characteristics of the district. Here I'm reading the environment as maybe the surrounding properties, this being a corner lot or a corner building. And so we have seen the character, and if you look at a street view of kind of this portion of the block, you get a feel for and a sense of what that, the character of this part of the neighborhood, this environment. And then you get to this particular building and you look at this portion with this overhead roof structure, the uncharacteristic porch and stairs leading up to, in my mind, also an inappropriate door, and the stairs behind this structure. And, it looks as if it's a rear facade, not a primary facade to me. And I think that detracts and takes away from the historic integrity of the environment in my mind. So I too am, for all the reasons we've discussed so far, am leaning towards inappropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner Quijano. Any other comments from other commissioners?
Yes, well, one of the things about this is this is a replacement item. And also the windows being there, it's a safety issue so they can see down the steps. And they did have a cover there before. I'm not sure if we would have approved it exactly that way, but there's definitely something we would have approved. so they could go downstairs and have some protection for that stairwell. And then you look at the staircase behind it, you know that's a relatively modern, it's like it's a steel case going upstairs. So that's not historic either. So I mean, there's some things there that it's not protecting that staircase being a historical item. But I think the big problem is that was the replacement, and the windows, I'm repeating myself, is a safety issue so you can see down those stairs. And I'm not sure what it would look like. I'm not sure if I approved it like that, but to tear something down, you're still going to need something there at the end to go through that door and keep the ice off.
Thank you, Commissioner White. I just want to go back to, I think, what a couple of things that, something in particular that Commissioner Beeson stated, and highlighting the additions. I think this would be a much different application if this weren't enclosed on 3 sides and almost completely enclosed, because it really is coming up to be an addition. It's sort of in a gray area presently, where it's a roof covering with a wall with windows on one side and closed on the other, and could, I think, very easily be enclosed at some point for a full addition. So I think, and that while that's a what if scenario, I think when we look back at our guidelines right now, as Commissioner Beeson and Rockland have highlighted, that not recommended for additions. So recommended is locating an attached exterior addition in the rear. While it does, I think the size, scale, and the relationship is limited to this front facade, it is completely, I think with the way that the rest of the house has currently been modified, this is something that's adding to detract even more from the character defining features of the house. And I think that is probably one of my major issues with the, while I do think it's crafted very nicely and it was at least considered well, I think that it is starting to detract from what character defining features are remaining. I would say something similar about the door itself and agree with Commissioner Rockland and his assessment.
Would you like to see what was there previously?
Yeah.
For the door or the?
Yeah, both. Let me pull up a picture. I know that Commissioner Fortner has something to add, but let me pull up a picture for a sec.
Okay.
If you want to go ahead, Kathy.
I was just say I agree with Commissioners Beeson and Rockland that it's sort of in the details that some of the choices actually make this appear more prominent and sort of a heavier piece of the facade than it would need to be. And so that it sort of is in the details. It's certainly possible to have that covered and safe without obscuring everything and without being such a prominent feature of the facade. And I agree, the door is incompatible.
Sorry, it doesn't want to let me share that screen. It's very selective.
There's a picture in the packet though, right, Jill? Is that what you're
Yeah,
going to go
that's
to?
the same one. It's
Yeah, okay.
With the metal awning, that's what you're referring to?
Yeah, I think it's page
Or the
5. You've
and the
got
door. So.
kind of a side by side of what exists today and previously.
Yeah, sorry, it just won't do it. Oh, wait. Oh, hey, there you go.
there
Can you
you
see that?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So here is 2014 or 15. So metal awning with little skinny metal posts.
And I agree that there, with some further thought, there is certainly an appropriate and compatible way of providing protection and shelter over the stairs. You know, as Jill mentioned, the stairs come out certain distance beyond the front face of the building, and that's a fact. And we need to access that maybe lower apartment or something. And by default, the overhead covering will also have to come out so far. But there is, I believe, a compatible design solution that could be achieved and give protection over that.
Mhm.
That doesn't necessarily mimic the historic characteristics of the building, but that's compatible.
It's a good point. Is there any more discussion on the motion? Are we ready for a vote? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no.
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 No. So there was an additional motion that I believe we need to go back to. This one did not carry.
Okay.
Here, another commissioner. Commissioner Fortner, are you making that
Sure.
motion?
Sure. I move that the commission finds that the stair enclosure and replacement door built and installed without permits at 502 North State Street do not qualify for certificate of appropriateness, and that the property owner is ordered to remove the stair enclosure and replace the door with a door that meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines within 60 days.
For
Moved by Commissioner Fortner, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there an additional discussion on this motion? Commissioner Rockland?
I move that we change 60 days to a longer time period that we can discuss because it is just impossible to get anything done right now in any, 60 days is pretty fast because there's going to be some design, and then after the design, then you're going to place an order probably, and you can't get anything right now.
We realize that this is ordering to take it down. This
Okay.
is not authorizing a replacement.
What about, I guess I was thinking about the door more than the stoop, but even, okay.
But
I don't want to
I
take
get what
any,
you're
I don't
saying.
want to remove a front door before we have a new one, and I don't want to take a roof
Yeah.
down in the winter when we can't put a new one up. So I think that even if it is just to take it down, let's just at least talk about it because it's really difficult to order something. Maybe you can find a door, but we're asking maybe for a specific door in this instance. And I mean, I would at least be amenable to increasing that. I'm wondering if anyone else has an opinion there.
I agree. Things have been taking longer than usual for construction projects lately. And I think, especially given the season, that is a fair consideration as well.
And how long has it been this way, Jill? When did they do this work originally?
I think about 4 years ago.
So, another delay isn't really going to make a lot of difference.
Yeah, we can't let it stretch out indefinitely because
Sure.
rental housing is going to start writing tickets every day.
Can we,
It has to keep moving at this point, and this is sort of the last step in that process. So I certainly.
can we put a time limit on the resubmission of an appropriate design?
That's what I,
You could. It'd probably be okay to do that once.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't get an appropriate design, then to just go ahead with setting an end date where it has to be gone. Yeah,
Mm.
that'd be reasonable.
Well, one of the things I think you may want to consider, especially for the winter, I'm not sure who's going up and down those stairs, but to tear that down and not have a cover, I mean, that's not even good sense. I mean, even if you said we'll do it in 180 days, but the problem is in the winter and the ice and the snow, you need to have something from a safety standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just tearing it down and having people living down there, that's not a good idea, folks.
Yeah, would that be a code problem to not have that stairway covered?
I don't know. I know that they exist uncovered, but I don't know.
Yeah. And they could build something temporary, you know, they could put a tarp up or, you know, they could do something, plywood and a tarp or something while they're rebuilding it. I don't see that as the issue. I was thinking more about ordering materials. And I was just thinking of maybe adding 30 days to it or something like that. But there was another idea to maybe just do it for put a time limit on the design. Does that make sense? Or
You could have them submit a new design for the February meeting because the deadline for the January meeting is like next week. So that's too soon. But have them figure out what they can reuse, what they can modify. They could come back with that for the February meeting. You'd want to put this in the motion. And then, but you have to take action tonight. You can't keep postponing this because the 60 days is almost up. So actually, you've already denied the application, so that's okay. But you should make a motion to postpone it to a date certain, and if a certificate of appropriateness is approved for that application, then you can put whatever amount of time you want on it for construction, whether that's 2 months or 3 months or 4 months or whatever.
Okay. Mr. Fowler, I saw you had a comment.
That was my question. If I could turn a design in, instead of tearing this thing off in the middle of winter and leaving it exposed, if I could turn the design in, like Jill said, for the February meeting, you know, so it would be in front of you for the February meeting, and then that we could find appropriate. That would be wonderful.
That sounds reasonable. Okay. Jill, you mentioned the 60 days is almost up. So the 60 days that we have in the motion here, is that when did that clock
I'm
start?
sorry, I'm incorrect. I was thinking of the earlier application that got postponed.
Okay.
So this is the first meeting. This one would have one more meeting, but they would have to have a design in to me next week.
Okay.
That doesn't seem very feasible.
So if we extend the
unless Rob knows exactly what he wants to build instead already.
Well, I kind of would like to run it by you, Jill, before submitting it if possible. So, yeah, I have some ideas that hopefully we can keep the roof and just open up the walls so that you can see the stone and the other features that were covered up.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me put it this way, Rob. Do you want to try to get a new complete set of drawings to me by the, let's see, let me give you the date.
23rd, right?
Yeah, it would be the 23rd.
January meeting.
January.
23rd of December.
Yes, I can do that.
Okay. Okay.
Just 20 days from now? 2 weeks?
So you'd have to have it to me by 5 o'clock on Wednesday, the 23rd.
About 2 weeks, roughly.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can make that happen.
Okay. And please get in contact with me before then if you want to run anything by me. I'll be off on the 23rd, but I'll be there until then.
Hopefully I'll have something to run by you next week so we can tweak it.
Okay.
And have finals to you by then.
Yeah. All right. So you guys have voted that this is not appropriate. So now why don't you vote to, somebody will need to make a motion to postpone it to the January 14 HDC meeting.
So the motion that Commissioner Fortner
Yeah,
made,
so
is that, do we need to amend that or?
Why don't you just withdraw that one, Kathy, and start over with a motion to postpone?
Okay. So I move that the commission postpone a decision on the application for the stair enclosure and replacement door built and installed without permits at 502 North State Street until the January 14th, 2021
Support.
HD meeting.
Moved by Commissioner Fortner, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there any further discussion on this motion? All those, if we're ready for a vote, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Okay, so our second motion carries. This application has been postponed to the January 14th meeting.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you working with us on this.
Thank you, Mr. Fallon.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Right. Now moving on to hearing F2, 403 West Liberty. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
Yes. All right. This is a property that you've seen a few times in the last few years. Let's see. This is a 2.5-story brick Queen Anne that was probably built in 1894. It has a lot of interesting fancy millwork and round-topped windows, and it's a very cool brick example of a Queen Anne with all of its sort of bric-a-brac and interesting details. It has a single-car garage, brick garage in the back that is a contributing structure. And the applicant is seeking HDC approval to install an additional paver patio on the west side of the house, a low boulder retaining wall along 2nd Street, which is this area here. It doesn't extend all the way to the corner, it's just partial. Front and rear cement walkways with pavers, replace the cement with pavers, and pave the driveway and parking area and install curbs and gutters. So this was obviously taken earlier than this, back when things were green and lovely. They've been doing work on this house for a long time now, and it's really coming along well. It's looking much better with all of the various fire escapes that were stripped off of the building. It's a huge improvement. Now the request is to pave the driveway. You'll see on the plan, it comes off the driveway into the garage here for one car's parking, and then goes back and basically just paves with asphalt everything that you see that's gravel to those same extents almost. You can see that this is right across the street from Argus Farm Stop. And the one exception is that the pavement would clip this corner a little bit where these boulders are, but it's behind the garage. I don't think that's a big deal. This is the way it looks right now. The asphalt would really follow these contours quite faithfully. You can see there's a pretty big lawn between West Liberty and this parking area. This parking area has been here for a long time. This is not anything that's new. It's a very established parking area. You can see it on aerial photographs. This is the wall between the lawn and the parking area. You can see that it's sunk down a few feet, which also helps sort of minimize the appearance of those cars from the road. All right, so this is the driveway side, and one patio has already been approved. It's shown on the plans, but it's already been approved, and it goes off of the corner of the house here. There's going to be a metal, small sort of deck here with stairs leading down for access into this door on the back of the house. A much larger deck was torn off of here, porch, uncovered porch. And this is, so if you look over here, there's a door to the basement over here. The house was a rooming house. It had zillions of bedrooms and units and things. It had like 3 units and no kitchen on the giant boarding house unit, but now it's down to just a duplex. And this is one of the main entrances to the basement for the unit that's using the basement, the sort of walkout level. This little bit of pavement here would be eliminated as part of the landscape plan. There's nothing historic about it. It doesn't show up in aerial photos or anything. A couple of these more established plantings, bigger things, lilacs and things, will be kept. They're shown on the plans. You can see the lilacs here, the new porch on the side is coming along. You can see that there is some slope down here to the sidewalk, and that's why they want to retain it a little bit. The second patio would be located right here and would be used by this unit that uses this door. That way, 2 units, 2 patios, privacy for each. It's just another shot looking down 2nd Street. And here are the plans. You can see the extent of pavement. This is the patio that was already approved. I think it's slightly shifted to accommodate a slightly different design of the stairs that I gave them staff approval for. It doesn't take up any more room. It just moved things around a little tiny bit. This is a new walkway here leading, there's a step leading to the new patio. And this is the new boulder wall. This is an existing boulder wall that I showed you a picture of. And this is a new paver walkway leading to the front on Liberty. These are just some other applicant photos. The landscape plan, I don't see in here. I'll pull it up in a second when I've gone through the standards and guidelines. But from the Secretary of Interior standards, number 1, I've already read to you, and I've read 2 to you, and I've read 9 and 10 as well. From the guidelines for district or neighborhood setting, it's recommended to identify, retain, and preserve buildings, streetscape, and landscape features which are important in defining the overall historic character of the district or neighborhood. Really, most of the landscape features of this house are in the front yard. It's that lawn leading up to the house. Not recommended is destroying landscape features by widening existing streets, changing paving material, or introducing inappropriately located new streets or parking lots. From the guidelines for building site, it's recommended to retain the historic relationship between buildings, landscape features, and open space. And it's not appropriate to introduce new landscape features that's out of scale or otherwise inappropriate to the district's historic character. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for paved areas, it's appropriate to install new parking areas. This isn't actually a new parking area, it would just be a newly paved parking area, which are compatible with the scale, proportion of yard area, and characteristics of the historic district behind buildings. These should be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. It's not appropriate to install parking areas that are too wide or large for the building site and are out of character for the district. Residential landscape features, it's not appropriate to introduce a new landscape feature or plant material that's visually incompatible with the site or destroys site patterns or vistas. The landscape plan is lovely, and that's why I'm going to go back right now and look it up for you. First, let me finish my staff report here. So staff does recommend approval of the application. Some of these details, like this drawing here with the dimensions, were provided after I wrote the staff report, so I was a little bit wishy-washy in there, but I do think that it definitely meets the standards and guidelines for approval from both the Secretary of Interior and the Ann Arbor Historic District Commission. So I'm going to pull up that picture while you guys go ahead and start the discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioner Beeson and Rockland, to give your report.
Sure. Well, that was a very thorough report, so I don't have much to add. I think I will just reiterate 2 points, because I think that the paving of the driveway and parking area is probably maybe the one questionable thing here, because it is a lot of paving. From the sidewalk side on 2nd Street, because of the garage and the back, it is sort of pinched there, so you don't really see much into the backyard. think that's one point. Another point is that it's a duplex, so there will be more cars because of that, and so therefore more paving. And then thirdly, as mentioned on the Liberty side, the parking area is set back pretty far from the sidewalk there, and it's sunk down. So I think that all of that is acting in favor of approval. I have to run actually, so I'm going to step off the meeting in a bit, but so I just didn't want to leave without saying goodbye. Oh, I did have a question. Will the carport that was originally proposed still be a part of this proposal or not? That's a question for the applicant when the applicant gets here, but I might be gone by that point. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Rackham.
Right, if you don't, oh, I'm sorry, let's do Commissioner Beeson first. Then I'll pull the picture up.
Yeah, so I guess the only areas that were still a little up in the air during the site walk, and I didn't really mention this to folks, but it's in my head now. Like the paving area on the street side closest to Argus with that slope, I'm not sure if they're going to try and make the patio and try and level it off a little bit more, but these are all questions for the applicant. Because having the patio that's the same slope as the grade out there probably wouldn't be fun to set up a chair in. But beyond that, I think the application is pretty straightforward in terms of what we see in those drawings. And as Commissioner Rockland had mentioned, this is really just looking at paving and making some impervious area.
Thank you, Commissioner Beeson. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record?
No, there are no other attendees.
Okay.
So no applicant in the meeting.
Okay. It looks like Ms. Thatcher was able to get the landscape plan pulled up.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lovely landscape plan for a rental property. You can see how that little retaining wall goes right in this area. And yes, I do believe it is to level off that patio by putting the boulders in, but it doesn't extend all the way up to the corner, I think, which is very appropriate.
I have another question for the commissioners for the review committee. Should we do that now or wait till discussion?
Is it about what site conditions were observed?
Sort of, yeah. Nah, it can wait.
Okay.
Yeah, I have another
about the retaining wall on that side. I think it was addressed, but I didn't see anything about the current height or the proposed height.
I have a site condition that should be outlined as well. So there is a burial marker of a baby from like 1850 something that's in one of those walkways. And again, we don't know much about it. We just know that it's there. We don't know what's underneath it. And so I guess the part of the question for the applicant was, what are they going to do with it? Because right now they're going to put pavers in that area. So
on a previous application, I do remember that the baby's not buried there. That I don't think that the owner even knew what the story was about that. It was just a stone that had been kicking around and somebody used it in the walkway. But somehow it had been confirmed that there was no baby underneath the stone.
And the stone itself, it being old, the name may have some historic significance. I don't know. Just it would be nice to know what the plan is for them with that stone.
We can move on to the public hearing portion. Kristen, do we have any callers at all?
No callers.
So let's move on to a motion. Is there any commissioner that would like to make a motion on the application? Commissioner Quijano?
Yes, thank you. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 403 West Liberty Street, the contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install a paver patio, replace cement walks with pavers, install a boulder retaining wall, and pave the driveway and parking area on the following condition: that the driveway, parking, and walkways to be replaced do not exceed their current dimensions. The work as conditioned is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the surrounding resources, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for paved areas and landscape features, and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, in particular standards 1, 2, and 10, and the guidelines for building site.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Quijano, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion? Good. So I can start. I just had a question, comment. Regarding the retaining wall on the east side of the property. Was that Third or Second Street there? I can't remember. And I think this goes back to Commissioner Beeson's question about the height of the patio. I was just curious if, what the retaining wall, the border retaining wall in the back, it's roughly even with the higher grade. So I guess I was just curious what the plan was for the retaining wall on this side, if it would be, I'm guessing it would be up above the sidewalk level. But do we have a height for that? Because that would be a pretty, I think, specific measurement we'd want to be able to review or see. Or is it, we're just making some assumptions about where it would be pulled off from the patio height? I think it's kind of hard to evaluate fully what that retaining wall piece would be and what that patio piece would be without having that piece of information. Other than that, I think everything is mentioned is pretty straightforward. I think the landscape plan looks really nice. This property is really well taken care of, and I think they've just been continuing to do more and more.
And we mentioned during the site visit that the aspects of impervious surface and stormwater are outside of our purview. Someone else will be looking at that for the city, we're expecting, but by and large, it being a surface that I don't know, Commissioner Rocco and I talked about this a little bit. As asphalt, it's going to be a big dark black surface, which is really going to change what it looks like in terms of the gravelly surface that's there now. Will it detract from the historic property or as such? I don't know. It could, especially being as a hard surface versus the gravel that's there now. We're supposed to kind of consider a little bit of the landscape work when we're looking at these properties and resources. So I'm not really convinced that filling the whole area with asphalt is a great thing to do. But I'm trying to dig up into the guidelines a little bit more as to how I could substantiate that kind of feeling and more of a guideline. So, normally we look at these driveway things too, and we always look at and say, okay, well, driveways, let's try and make it a double track instead of just paving the whole thing. And here we are paving the whole thing. And this being a parking lot too, it's not like we can make it double track either. So those are the points for discussion. I'm going to start bringing up more of the guidelines.
Any other commissioners?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the photo, kind of that aerial shot in the packet. I guess, do we know if it was a 2-track even before? Maybe that's a minor detail for this bigger discussion, but there's a way to.
Yeah, it may have been, though at one point the whole driveway, it looks like there may have been 2 tracks that were then filled in the middle with concrete, and now almost all of it is worn away.
Right.
Aerial photos were kind of inconclusive though about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have more to
mean-
add. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm just trying to remember walking along that sidewalk or even across the street, you know, how much with that garage right there, how much do you really perceive of the
Mhm.
parking beyond?
And with the carport there, it would certainly help kind of obscure it, especially obscure how much of the paved parking you'd see beyond just that boulders from the street looking south.
Mhm.
But right now it's a fairly large mass. I think you would definitely see and you're like, whoa, that's a lot of pavement back there.
Right.
So
And
speaking,
that carport, oh, sorry, Jill.
yeah, speaking to the carport, the owner is applying to get an extension. Her 3-year approval date is up pretty soon, like I think in 6 months from now or so, for the carport. But she said she definitely intends to build it and she's going to get an extension on that. But she wants to have everything else in first. So that's understandable.
And was that carport, I can't remember, was it aligned along the edge of that existing stone wall?
Yes, parallel to
something?
Liberty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
It was a fancy carport too.
Guess I'll add some more thoughts here. You know, in terms of the Ann Arbor District design guidelines for landscape features, it seems like, you know, what they're proposing in the landscape works just fine. I think the patios around the house and even the one on the east yard would still work just fine. It's, you know, it's not visually incompatible and it doesn't destroy the site patterns or vistas in any way. I think it still presents the house in a formalized way that still is basically what it looks like, you know, a fairly large raised up on a plinth house with a steep grade. So even with the patios around that and the vegetation that they're proposing, I think that house would still read as such. It's the paved areas part that I'm still kind of digging through and saying, you know, installing driveways or park areas that are too wide or large for the building site and of better character for the district. So looking around at the district, you know, there's lots of larger parking areas for tenants. I just can't in my head right now think of any that are this big and paved. There might be big, but they're mostly gravel. Jill, can you think of any? I can't think of any in the area.
I can't think of any that have come to the HDC to be approved in the last 10 years, except a few driveways and then that one that you had a couple months ago at the corner of 7th and Liberty, where they had a parking lot. That was,
Oh yeah, and it was like washing
it was
away.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
That was also 3 cars of parking next to a garage. But it wasn't as large because it just wasn't, they also paved where it was established and it just wasn't as big.
Jill, would you mind bringing up the site plan again that shows the paving area?
Do you want the
I don't think I have
landscape?
that.
You want the landscape plan
Not-
or the dimensioned one?
The dimensioned one. I didn't have that one in my packet.
I think there was like a second document.
Maybe I missed it. So I was looking because that patio on the east, even though, I'm sorry, on the west, the paver patio, it looks like it's taking up some of what was the existing parking. Is that, if I look at that in the aerial plan, it's still additional paving. But I guess is it less asphalt area that would be covered in surface area? Because I do think that the parking area is in a completely appropriate spot as far as the scale to the rest of the lot. It is, of course, larger than what we would normally see for parking and takes up quite a bit of space, but I think it's in an appropriate corner and it's in, you know, it's hidden from view for the most part. So just going back to the guidelines that Commissioner Beeson stated, it may be slightly out of scale for the district, but I think this house has quite a large lot size. So I think it's proportional to the landscape itself.
That's a good point. Yeah, and it's not, it's not growing towards Liberty.
Right.
That line is being held, that boundary, historic site boundary is being held.
And it is, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I guess this is why we're supposed to raise our hand, right?
No, you're good. I wasn't looking there anyway.
And I think as you kind of mentioned, Commissioner Epperson, that that in terms of where it is placed, it's not like it's placed in the front of the house, right, or in the front yard, or in a really prominent view, and especially with the carport coming in, it certainly quells a little bit more of my concern. So, in terms of interpreting that portion of the guideline about whether it's too wide or large for a building site and out of character, I think I'm a little more comfortable moving ahead with it being where it is and how it's located. So
I was going to bring up the carport because I think it will conceal quite a bit of that asphalt if it is indeed moving forward. Are there, I guess, just back to one of my first points regarding that retaining wall on the east side, are there any concerns or anything from other commissioners about how that will look or turn out, or any height issues?
I was just wondering, I was looking through the packet to see if there was any language
Maybe
specifically
something I missed.
speaking to that.
I don't recall seeing any.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking in the past we've stipulated like it can be no more than 30 inches. So if that's something that we need to address in the motion or just clarify, I think I would be more comfortable with that.
Well, the lilacs are staying.
Okay.
So, from the lilacs forward is the amount that the grade could change by a boulder wall. I don't know what that number is. I certainly don't think it's 30 inches. So I think if you used a number like that, it would be very safe.
Yeah. I think I'd be comfortable with something like that. And like a not to exceed.
Is there any more discussion on the motion?
I think I would have to amend the motion.
Amend.
Yeah. And as an added amendment to the previously stated motion, to install a boulder retaining wall that shall not exceed a height of 30 inches from sidewalk level.
I wouldn't call it the material, just say a retaining wall, not a boulder retaining
Strike
wall.
the boulder description and leave it as a retaining wall.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Quijano.
Sure.
So moved by Commissioner Quijano, supported by Commissioner White. Any additional discussion on the motion and the amendment? Okay, we're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Yeah. All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. The application has been approved, and the applicant will receive a written notice from staff. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. We will move on to item G. Looks like there's no new business. Is that correct, Ms. Thatcher? Item H, minutes. So I believe we received minutes for the October meeting
Right.
briefly, just before. Is there any objections to the minutes?
I didn't catch any.
No objections. So the meetings are approved, or the minutes are approved as presented. Item I, any reports from the commissioners? Would any commissioner like to share something with the commission? Nope. Everything's good.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know. Probably everyone saw that email from Jill, but
Mhm.
about the state tax credit up
Still-
for Senate's review. No, House. Oh yeah, it passed the Senate. It's going to the House. Yes.
Yeah.
I guess write those emails.
Exactly. Thank you for sending that out. I received another email at my work as well. About all right, we'll go on to J1, assignment. The review committee will be on Monday, January 11th, 2021, at noon for the January 14th, 2021 regular meeting. Do we have any volunteers for that review committee? Yeah. Check my calendar.
Yeah.
I think I can do it. So you can put me down, Joe.
I can as well, as usual.
John, you've done the last two in a row. Can anybody
No.
else do it?
I think I can do that one. I'm just looking at.
Okay, how about,
Yeah, you can put me down. That's
Okay.
at noon, you said? At
Yes.
noon? Okay.
all right. Thank you. Thank you all.
May it be sunny and above freezing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even just above freezing. I
That's
don't have
okay.
to
Sunny
take
and
the
above
sun.
freezing.
It's Michigan
Right. In January.
in January.
All right. Item K1, report from staff. The November staff report was attached. Are there any questions? Is there anything about the staff report?
Well, you're looking at the staff report. My only staff update is annually the legislative agenda is asked for by the city, where we propose policy changes, things of that nature that would benefit historic preservation, that the city can fund or work on or dedicate resources to or something. This year they're doing it a little bit differently, and they're asking us for a state level legislative agenda. If this had been 6 months ago, supporting that Senate bill that's going to the House, hopefully next week, if we all send enough emails, would have been a no-brainer. But, and if that dies without being acted upon, we can still put that on the legislative agenda. We need to have it done by February, so I'm going to put it on the January meeting agenda. So I'm only raising it now so that you can think about if there are ways that you'd like the city to influence state level laws or policymaking or programs, and we will put our city people in Lansing on some of those issues.
What is the tax credit that you're offering now?
So the tax credit, it's very similar language to what was eliminated by Governor Snyder about 5-6 years ago now, maybe longer.
Maybe more.
And various groups have been trying really hard to get it back on the state agenda. It's made it a couple of times this far, but it often runs up against this December 31st barrier and doesn't get acted on in the lame duck sessions at the end of the House or Senate session. But it would restore the tax credits for things like private residential houses that are doing a lot of restoration work. Michigan is one of only a handful of states that don't have a state historic preservation tax credit right now. There's a federal credit that owners of commercial properties can apply for, but there's nothing to benefit single family or duplex property owners right now.
What's the tax credit percentage?
20%.
I think it was 25%.
The
wasn't
25
it?
now? It was 20.
I don't know. I haven't read the new legislation closely enough.
But it was 20 before. The 25
It's-
would be nice.
It's substantial.
Yes.
And is that exterior work only?
No.
No, it's the whole
Any
house.
work?
Mm.
So even if they take like a duplex and turn it into a single family, the work would fall under.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, the applications take a lot of work. You have to document everything really thoroughly before you start at all. And there's a lot of paperwork involved, and it draws out the project time, but you're getting a lot of benefit out of that.
Yeah.
Well worth it.
Yeah. If a
Yeah,
homeowner
it is
wants to do
25%.
it, 25.
Mhm.
And if a homeowner wants to do it on a 25%, of their overall budget.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to do it, to meet the Secretary of Interior standards. You can't blow out plaster walls and put up drywall, for
Yeah.
example.
Mhm.
And sometimes people don't get that, but
It's in the fine print.
Hence the before photos.
And that's also assuming, that there are plaster walls now, like if they are renovating inside, but there's no plaster to begin with.
Oh, you're okay
Hey.
there.
Kathy, are you speaking to us right now? Because
No.
it says, okay. It says your microphone was off and I got very confused.
Oh, no, I'm not on mute. Can you hear me now?
Now I can, yeah.
Yeah, I'm on mute.
Oh, now I lost you again. Okay.
Maybe it's
She fades when she moves back.
the distance.
Oh, there.
All right, so be thinking about what state level policies or laws you would like to influence, and we'll talk about it in January.
Okay.
It's your homework.
Thanks for bringing that up. Commissioner Quijano, did you have? something
Oh, well,
else?
I was just going to maybe briefly
Yeah.
mention a thought I had on that now before I forget it next month.
Sure.
Is that I don't know if there are any programs out there or could be, but maybe something that helps support the trades people that we need for preservation work, whether it's education or just something to help those businesses. But, that's a critical component, those
Mhm.
trades and contractors that are skilled with they're like craftsmen. So something that can help support that, because it's often hard to find that type of labor.
That's a great idea.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll continue this conversation in January.
Thanks.
Any issues with the staff report? I'll get back. Didn't see anything.
Good.
Lots of stuff going on. Looks like lots of roofs.
On a dairy roof,
right.
solar panels on a
Yeah.
dairy roof.
Awesome. Now if they just do heat reclamation on their coolers.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Okay.
Move on to item L, concerns of commissioners. Any concerns from any commissioners?
No.
Right. And communications, I don't believe there are any communications to the HDC this month. So with that, we can adjourn. I now adjourn the December 10th, 2020 HDC meeting.
Without objections.
Great
without
job.